I need to confess something. For a long time, I imagined the final judgment the way popular culture has always portrayed it. A single moment, a single throne, everyone in human history lined up at once, waiting their turn to hear heaven or hell. But when I looked at the biblical text carefully, I realized that this image simplifies and perhaps distorts something far more complex than that. It's not one judgment, there are at least three, and each one seems to have a different purpose, a different audience, a different criterion. Wait, 3 judgments? That practically changes everything I thought about how this matter ends. Come with me and I'll show you where I was wrong. The first one is called, by many theologians, the judgment seat of Christ, in Greek, bema, which was literally the platform where athletic judges stood during the Greek games to distribute prizes to the winners. Not is the choice of word. It's not a criminal court. It's an awards platform. Paul writes that we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, so that each of us may receive what is due for what we have done. 2 Corinthians 5:10. However, this judgment, according to the context of the letter itself, seems to be specifically for those who are already believers. It's not about deciding who goes to heaven or hell, it's about rewards and works, after salvation is already guaranteed. I confess that this distinction surprised me the first time I noticed it. Paul further details this idea in 1 Corinthians 3:12-15, using a construction metaphor. Each person builds their life on the foundation of Christ, using different materials: gold, silver, precious stones, or wood, hay, straw. On the day of judgment, the fire will test the quality of each material. Those who built with resistant things receive a reward. Those who built with fragile things see it burn. But the text makes a point of saying that the person will be saved, yet so as by fire. That is, even losing the work, the person remains saved. It's reward at stake here, not salvation. The second judgment is quite different, and this is what most people usually imagine when they think of final judgment, the great white throne, described in Revelation 20:11-15. At this moment, the dead, those who were not among the saved, are judged according to their works, recorded in books. And here the text adds a weighty detail. There is also the book of life, and whoever does not have their name written in it is thrown into the lake of fire. Note that this judgment happens after 1,000 years, according to the sequence of chapter 20 itself, well after, chronologically, the first one we just saw. They are completely different audiences, at completely different times. And there is also a third, less talked about, almost forgotten in the sermons I heard growing up, the judgment of the nations, described by Jesus in Matthew 25:31-46. In this account, the Son of Man separates the nations as a shepherd separates sheep from goats, one side from the other. And the criteria used here surprise many people: feeding the hungry, giving drink to the thirsty, welcoming the stranger, clothing the naked, visiting the sick and the imprisoned. Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. This isn't about correct doctrine or declared belief. It's about concrete action, practical treatment of the most vulnerable. This doesn't fit the image I had in my head of a judgment based solely on you believed or you didn't believe. So, putting it all together, a judgment of reward for those already saved, based on the quality of life built, a final judgment for those who rejected salvation, based on recorded works, and a judgment of the nations, based on how they treated the most needy. 3 scenarios, 3 criteria, 3 audiences. It's not a single scene, it's more like a sequence of acts, each resolving a different issue within the biblical plan. And honestly, understanding this has truly changed how I read the rest of the Bible. Because much of the fear we carry regarding the final judgment comes precisely from this overly simplistic image: one throne, one verdict, without distinction between those who already belong to Christ and those being judged for completely rejecting Him. When you separate these 3 moments, the fear doesn't disappear, but it becomes more precise. It becomes less, will God randomly decide my destiny on any given day, and more, what am I building now, with what I already have? Of course, the usual caveat applies. Not every theologian agrees with this exact division into 3 separate events. There is a line of interpretation, generally linked to amillennial readings, that tends to combine some of these moments into a single scene, a single, more condensed day of the Lord. It's a real debate within Christian theology about the chronology of final events, and it will likely continue to be discussed for a long time to come. But the texts themselves, individually, the judgment seat of Christ, the great white throne, the judgment of the nations, these are real passages with clearly distinct purposes and language, and that's what's worth understanding, regardless of which chronological scheme you ultimately adopt. If you also grew up imagining the final judgment as a single scene, you weren't alone. I also imagined it that way until recently. And it's funny how a detail like that changes the way we approach the rest of our faith in everyday life. So the question for you is, which of these three judgments surprised you the most? The judgment seat of rewards, the great white throne, or the judgment of the nations based on how we treat those in need? Comment below with your opinion. I really want to know, and I'll see you in the next video.